Good afternoon, everyone. And in the case of our two guests this evening, Mark Billingham and Richard Osman, it's actually good evening. I am going to retire myself from the screen in a moment, which I forgot to do. But before I do, let me welcome everybody and also introduce Richard, although Mark will do it better, but Richard is a TV personality and all-around famous person in the UK, and his wonderful book, The Thursday Murders, has been a #1 bestseller there. Is it still on the top of the list, Richard?
It is, yes, which is very good news. You joined us at a good time.
Wow, well, that is wonderful. And I will say that we do still have some signed copies that came in from London for those of you who would like to have one. And we still have the American edition as well. Mark Billingham's newest book is called Crybaby. He did an event with us in Lee Chow to celebrate it. It is a Tom Thorne prequel and a wonderful book as well. So I'm going to turn this over to Mark, who is a longtime friend of Richard, and they're going to rock and roll here for you. So take it away, Mark.
How you doing, Richard?
Hey, I'm really well, Mark. How are you?
I'm good. Well, we did one of these events, did a UK event a few weeks ago, and we talked obviously a lot about the Thursday Murder Club, but this was before, the book smashed its way to the top of the chart. And I mean, we're talking record-breaking numbers. I mean, just astonishingly successful. This is not something that the average debut novelist gets, Richard.
That's yes. I mean, I'm told that, but obviously for me, it's the first one I've ever done. So to me, they go, look at these numbers. I go, okay, that's and is that good? And then I see the smiles on their faces. They seem quite happy. It's been amazing over here, which is fantastic. Obviously now I want to break into other territories, Mark. You know how much I'm on telly in the UK and how bored the UK is of me. It's time I crack the States, and I need your help to do it.
No. I think you are going to crack the States. We will talk about that. Now, we will talk, obviously, in great detail about the Thursday Murder Club. But I wanted to talk to you about an article that I read, that you must have written very recently. Because I've seen the book described in various reviews as being very British, being a very British book. And you wrote this whole article about what that means in the context of a murder mystery. Talk to us a bit about that, about the politeness and the long-held grudges.
Yeah, well, I was essentially saying why are British mysteries so kind of so addictive? And I was saying essentially all British people are suspicious because all British people are incredibly polite. I mean, incredibly polite. If you ever bump into a British person in the supermarket, the British person will turn around and apologise. And they'll feel terribly, terribly guilty. But we apologise for everything. But of course, that's just us being polite. Deep down, we're all seething balls of resentment, right? I mean, bent on revenge at all times. And Agatha Christie was so brilliant with that because everything in Christie looked so genteel, and it was all tea and cake, and it was all country houses and what have you. And underneath, of course, everyone's killing each other. And that's the thing with British people. Listen, we're all polite, and actually 70% of us actually are polite. We actually are nice human beings, right? Not myself and yourself included, of course. But the other 30% are just as polite as us, but they will murder you. That was the thrust of the article, really. It's true, isn't it?
They'll be apologising as they murder you. I mean, I'm terribly sorry.
I'm sorry. I appear to have got some blood on your tunic. I'm so sorry. That really is remiss of me. I really shouldn't have done. Oh wait, I appear to have rather over-poisoned your tea. I'm so sorry if that's a bit bitter for you.
Yes.
But then you'll be dead. And I also talked about the long history of Britain and how everyone can trace the history back like 500 years, and so there are grudges, and pretty much everyone in Britain, if you go back far enough, has a grudge against pretty much anyone else in Britain. So essentially everyone's also got a motive for killing everybody, which makes it fun to write, right? Because everybody is a suspect.
Yeah, your great-great-great-grandfather once spilt my great-great-grandfather's pint.
Well, that's not how my great-great-grandfather tells it. He said your great-great-grandfather bumped into him, and so you, my friend, and I are going to have a duel on Hampstead Heath at dawn.
Yeah. But I mean, you're absolutely right. Right from Christie onwards, there's more darkness in two middle-aged women having a cup of coffee in a Ruth Rendell book, or in P. James. It's so dark. It's all the undercurrent, isn't it?
Well, I think I said in that article, I said, look, if a British person walks past your front garden or your front yard and says, your garden is looking beautiful this morning, they may well mean your garden is looking beautiful this morning, or they might mean, I know for a fact that you're having an affair with my wife, and I'm going to return later and murder you. Okay, it could be that you will literally never ever know, especially if you are having an affair with their wife.
I'll make an appointment to come and murder you.
Exactly. I wonder if you're available at 4, maybe 4:30. I could come and see you.
Yes. And then I'll write thank you note afterwards.
And the police are always polite as well.
Well,
the police are always, we appear to have solved the crime. It turns out that you murdered your neighbour. I wonder if you would mind accompanying us down to the police station. I know it's a terrible inconvenience.
Well, of course, in all the great British mysteries and British cop shows that dramatisations of mysteries, the very first thing that police do when they get to a murder scene is pretty much sit down and have a cup of tea.
Yeah, of course it is. But that's true. In the article, I said, look, we're not making this stuff up. Like, we're not making up these beautiful, quaint little villages. We're not making up places called Steeple Bunstead. We're not making up these police officers who come around for a cup of tea. That's what we've got. And the beauty is, it just hides so much. And so you can write, as all writing is subtext, isn't it? And it's so easy for a British writer to do subtext, because anything you write is menacing, if you know what British people are like. Anything you write.
Well,
this could be menacing. You and I, this could be, who would know, right? we may have murderous intent towards each other.
We may well. The Thursday Murder Club is firmly in this tradition, absolutely in this tradition. So let's talk in a bit of detail about it. Tell us a bit about Joyce and Elizabeth and Ron and Ibrahim, who they are and the world they inhabit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's funny if it really comes from that old British tradition, because the idea came when I visited a retirement community, and it was so beautiful and bucolic, and old English hedgerows and little streams and the bird song and stuff like that. The mind of a British author immediately turns to murder in a place like that. You're thinking, well, this would be a terrific place for a murder. But as it was a retirement community, everyone there was 70 plus, and I started talking to them and hearing their life stories, and I thought, well, you would solve a murder. You got so brilliant, you got so much time on your hands, you appear to be drinking, it's 11:30 in the morning and you're already drinking. I imagine you would solve this murder, and that's where Thursday Murder Club came about. These 4 people, they meet up once a week, Elizabeth, Joyce, Ron and Ibrahim, to look over old unsolved cases. And then there was a real murder in their community, and the 4 of them team up and use the skills they have from their life, which are considerable, you discover throughout the book, to solve the murder. So the setting is very British and very polite and very genteel, but I make sure I really throw the real world at them. Bad stuff happens to them, but they can sort of take on pretty much anything.
So these skills that the 4 main characters have. So Joyce is a former nurse, and she's kind of our Watson in a way. She's sort of telling us the story through her diary and so on.
Exactly.
Sorry, go on, Richard.
Yeah, no. So she's a nurse. So she's someone. She's the most overlooked of the 4 of them. She's the one. She's the gentlest. She's the one that wouldn't do you any harm. And of course, she's the one who actually gets things done. She's the actual terrifying one. Ron, who is a Labour activist, a trades union official, we would say over here. So incredibly belligerent about all things and everything, but also incredibly loyal and fierce and strong. Ibrahim, who's a psychiatrist, who is always trying to make lists and laminate things. That's how he investigates. And they're sort of brought together by a character called Elizabeth. Now, we never really know what Elizabeth does for a living, though it becomes very apparent that she spent a lot of time in the security services, let's say, spying, that she was, she's Jane Bond, essentially. Because when I was at this community, there were people, they're in their 70s, and I know that some of them were doing stuff like that. You could tell when you were talking to people, the places they'd been, the things they were talking about. And so, Elizabeth has this whole spy network that she can sort of draw into her world. But Joyce is the one who actually gets stuff done. So they are sort of Holmes and Watson. Joyce and Elizabeth.
It's wonderful when that moment when it dawns on you exactly what Elizabeth's past was.
Yeah.
Nothing phases her, and it's like, I will never be able to do that. And Elizabeth goes, don't worry, there's somebody I can have a word with.
Yeah,
and just an impossible thing, and you go, oh, I get it.
Yeah, she literally has to put in a phone call to some, there's a point where, for various reasons, they need a forensic officer to examine a body, and she just gets a retired 80-year-old forensic officer and has him down in a grave, just because she knows him from the 60s. So yeah, they can sort of do whatever they want, is the truth, which is rather lovely. And the main point being, they are underestimated, as people in their 70s tend to be, and so they run rings. So they have to get to the heart of the police investigation. It's the thing they have to do, which is sort of impossible. Because how do you, as a civilian, get to the heart of that investigation? How do you get access to files? How do you get access to suspects? You can't. But these four, through various methods, they can, and they bend everybody to their will.
Yeah, and they can do all sorts of dodgy stuff and annoy people, and at the end of the day go, what are you going to do to us? They have wonderful freedom, but they're untouchable.
Yeah. There's a lack of consequence. Well, they say there's two police officers in the book, or two main police officers, Chris and Donna, and they sort of say to them at one point, look, I'm really aware that what we've done, strictly speaking, is against the law. I get it. I understand that. However, in your position, I'm not really sure what you're going to do, because you're not really going to arrest a 75-year-old woman and take her down to the police station and put her in the cells for a night. You're not going to. You're not going to put her up in court. No one's going to convict me of anything. So why don't you just sit down, drink your cup of tea, and let's talk about the case.
Have another piece of lemon drizzle cake, and let's just stop worrying.
Yeah, exactly that.
Very envious that this wonderful world of the amateur sleuth frees you so much from having to wade through all that treacly police procedural that idiots like me have to deal with every time. It must be wonderfully liberating to be able to.
But I do. I've read every single Tom Thorne novel, and if people watching have not read all of them, you must do. They're brilliant. But there is always that opening paragraph of like chapter 7, which has to explain that there's a new subdivision of North London Police, which has now moved the offices to somewhere else. And you have to just get it out of the way in a paragraph before we can get on with the action. And I didn't have to worry about any of that.
No, at its clumsiest, that stuff, and you see it worst in TV dramas, excusing the likes of Elton and Ian Rankin and people that write these kind of books.
Yeah.
But on TV, where they have to do it in shorthand, coppers are always explaining their own jobs to other people, to other coppers. A scenes of crime officer will walk in, the detective inspector will go, well, you must be the scenes of crime officer. Your job is to now bag and tag the forensic evidence and do it. And it's so clumsy, but you can see why they do it.
And then they always have to say, how long will it take? And instead of saying, it'll take as long as it always takes, why are you asking me that question?
Why are you asking me? Who's watching?
72 hours, maybe I can do it in 48. And you think, but everyone already knows all that stuff. But but you get it out of the way. But I didn't have to worry about any. The only research I really had to worry about was various recipes for cakes and working out various train times from Kent to London. That was my main research. Otherwise, the four of them just told the story.
Now we first spoke about this book about 2 years ago when you told me you were writing it and you told me what the idea was, and I knew straight away it was just a killer idea. I just knew the book was there. But what I hadn't really realised until we had that discussion, was just what a massive fan of crime fiction you are and how steeped in the genre. When did you start reading it?
Well, I mean, I started reading it as soon as I started reading with it. I didn't start reading super early as a child. I was a TV child, but as soon as I started reading, I was into Christie and all that kind of stuff, and Dorothy L. Sayers. So I started reading really, really early. And I say to a lot of people in the UK, look, I wrote this book in secret, which I did, because over here, I'm on TV and no one wants a celebrity writing a book. So I really kept it to myself, didn't talk to publishers or anyone. But I did talk to you. I came to talk to you about it because I'd always wanted to write one. And I had a little bit of time on my hands, and I just wanted to talk to someone who I admired and I knew was brilliant and I knew how to do it. I just wanted to say, is this completely insane? And you quite right, you said it's a bit insane, but not completely insane. So I thought, well, that sounds like a green light to me. But I would only ever write a crime book because that's what I love to read. And the TV I make over in the UK tends to be very mainstream stuff, which is the stuff that I always watch. And I'll always make TV shows that I would watch, because then you don't have to second guess anybody, you're not having to be cynical. And the same with this. I just wrote a book where I'm never having to think, oh, what sort of thing should I write? Oh, what sort of thing would people like? I just write I love crime fiction, so I'm just going to write a great crime book with a mystery at the heart of it, and then characters that I love. and so I never ever had to think, wow, how would somebody else do this? Because I've read so much of it and I love so much of it, I could always take from all sorts of different places.
Well, one of the things that strikes me is that there's no way you could possibly have known while you were writing this book where we would be now, the state of the world now. But it strikes me as the most perfect book for where we are now, because yes, there's a lot of there's some darkness in the book and people die and there's murders and whatever, but it's a book that absolutely oozes kind of warmth and camaraderie and community, and it strikes me that that's very important to you as a writer.
Yeah, it is, and as a human being, and you're quite right. Look, we've all had very difficult 2020s, both sides of the Atlantic and the rest of the world as well. And crime fiction in general, I think, is very good for these times because there's going to be obstacles, but there's going to be a conclusion. But no, I always want to write. I didn't deliberately set out to write a warm book, but I created warm characters who argue with each other but like each other. It's a book about kindness and friendship, and so it's a book about doing the right things. It's a book about being kind but tough, because those are the people I admire. That's the sort of family that I'm from, and yet it really seems to have come out, and you can see in the UK that it's really hit a nerve because people are going, well, this is a book that we wanted to read. These are 4 people we wanted to spend some time with, 4 people who've got some wisdom, who've got flaws, but who sort of love each other, who do the right things, who are a bit cheeky, who are mischievous, who like a drink. And it seems, kind of, and it's weird, isn't it? Because you start writing a book 2 years before it comes out. But it seems to have hit the world at a good time. I'm very chuffed that people are taking to it, and that it's giving people some comfort and some laughs, and as you say, a few little bits of scariness as well, and a little bit of darkness. But it's
and a laugh. The book is very funny. The book is very funny too. We should not fail to mention that. It's not a comedy. It's not a comedy book. It's not a comic crime novel. But there's a lot of wit in it, and I think yes, people will want crime fiction at this time because crime fiction always gives you story and story.
Yeah.
The reassurance of that, the reassurance of some kind of resolution at the end. But I don't think it's an accident that the golden age of crime fiction, all those writers you read, your Christies and your Dorothy L. Sayers, your Marjorie Allingham, that came after the First World War.
Yeah.
And I think it came after this huge period of international trauma, that people wanted stories that were warmer and reassuring. And, that word cozy is overused. But do you know what I mean? I don't think people are now going to want to read very, very dark stuff. Not for a while, maybe.
I think it's right, but also, here's the interesting thing, this is my genuine view, is I don't think that that's us burying our head in the sand or us wishing that the world were different. I think it's actually, in a year like we're having in the UK and in the US, there's a tendency, especially if we spend a lot of time on social media or looking at the news, to think the world is a certain way, to think it's incredibly combative, to think that, everything's going terribly wrong. But if we look around us into our families and our lives and our neighborhoods and our friends, that's not the case. There's a huge amount more kindness and warmth and agreement than we would see through social media or through any other media. And so I think it's not saying, oh, let's have this lovely escapist fantasy that we can all get along. I think actually most of us can get along, is the truth. And we're being led down a path to say we can't get along. That's the agenda of lots of people who want to set us up in opposition to each other. Of course they do. I see why you'd want to. It's an easy way to win power. But actually, braver thing that is to say there's an awful lot that unites us. There's an awful lot that makes us human beings. There's an awful lot we have in common. And someone, without ever lecturing, sometimes you've got to just put that case down on paper and just say, look, there's some really great people in the world, and they're naughty, they're mischievous, they've got flaws, but they're decent human beings.
Yeah, and the way to see that is to get off social media for a while. I mean, if you spend 12 hours a day on Twitter, you really are going to think that the world is, that there's no room for nuance or kindness or debate. That it's all, I believe that or I believe that. And if you don't, you're an idiot, And the world, as you say, isn't like that, really.
Yeah. And the beauty of having characters in their 70s as well is, firstly, they've seen everything. They've been through all these cycles before. They really have. But secondly, you can, because I've got other characters in the book who are in their 20s and in their 50s, and it's very rare to have a book where there's a friendship between a 27-year-old and a 75-year-old, and in this book there very much is, and that's such a lovely, easy way to write about our preconceptions of people, our preconceptions of older people, maybe being a bit more conservative, which, again, as soon as you meet them, by and large, they're not. It's a lovely way to say, my God, we're human beings, and we can have a laugh together, and we can love each other, and we can be loyal to each other. And it's that having those 4 characters, all of whom I love, just brings so much of the rest of the world to them, and they bring so much of themselves and their wisdom to the rest of the world, that it's you can kind of, again, without giving a single lecture, you can give a worldview, which is, I wonder if we should just chat more to each other.
Yeah, well, they are a joy to spend time with. Let's talk a little bit about the actual writing of the book. I mean, one of the things you're known for here in the UK in terms of television is creating television formats, coming up with with game shows and all that sort of stuff. So when it came to the writing of the book, was it instinctive, or did you approach that kind? Did you approach it more like deconstructing it, and how do I put a crime novel together? Or did you just start writing and go with it?
It's interesting. Well, 2 different things. So the clothes of it were quite instinctive. The idea, I immediately, with a TV head on, went, that's actually quite a good idea. That's, and also I could sort of think, I could see how one could write into that. The title, The Thursday Murder Club, I immediately thought, well, that's quite a good title. As a TV executive, it's all you ever think about is, have we got a good title? But then when I started writing, the beautiful thing was I left that behind entirely. It's my job in TV. It's always with a big team of people. It's very, very collaborative. And with this, I was just able to create a whole world. And the moment I had the 4 main characters, I was able just to sort of write along with them, if you know what I mean. I wasn't ever thinking, oh, I wonder which demographic this is going to play with, or anything like that. The one thing I definitely take from television is that desperate fear that someone's going to switch over. Because on TV there's so many other channels. So if I'm making a show, I can't have a boring 2 minutes in the show. You can't, because people switch over, and quite rightly, you've got to entertain people. And I had that in mind throughout the book. The chapters are very, very short, just because that's my attention span anyway. And I just wanted to make sure, just always be entertaining. Never give anyone a reason to put the book down and pick up something else. Lots of people are saying, I've read it in one go, and you think, great, that's perfect, because that's it, just keep people's attention, just keep them going. And again, it was subconscious, I think, but that's my entire career has been, for heaven's sake, don't bore us. I think it was Roxette who said, don't bore us, get to the chorus, and that was very much my attitude.
Well, I'm sure there are people watching this who will be aware of, or who will have read Elmore Leonard's 10 Rules of Writing, which is just a wonderful book. And some of it is deeply profound. Some of it is purely for laughs. The most profound thing, the most profound of his rules, which I think should be sellotaped above every writer's desk, is always try to avoid the parts readers tend to skip. And it's so simple, isn't it? I mean, essentially what you're saying is avoid them changing the channel. But it is just, keep it simple and tell the story,
It's 100% right, and you can fall in love with bits of writing, passages of writing, or chapters, or characters, but you have to be like a steam train, and if your plot is like a steam train, if your plot is heading to its direction as fast as it can, you can meander in and out with your characters. They can have a load of fun. They can be, you can fall in love with the characters, as long as your plot is taking care of itself, and you're not having some sort of half an hour diversion where you're going off, because someone wants to see their grandson and it's nothing to do with the plot. You can't do it, right? And I'm a great believer in that. I love great stylists and great literary writers, but in a book like this, I think you get more out of people if you just say, boom, here's a great story, and meanwhile I want you to meet these characters and see if you like them. So I'm with Elmore Leonard on that. I'm going to piggyback on Elmore Leonard's advice.
Oh yeah, as we all do, as we all piggyback on the great Elmore Leonard. You mentioned the plot. In terms of the actual plot, did it spring directly from those 4 characters, or was there a lot of, are you one of those working out things on a whiteboard and lots of color-coded notes, or was it a bit more instinctive?
People get annoyed because I didn't have a single post-it note. I didn't have any whiteboard. I didn't have anything like that. Occasionally, I'll make a little list of what are the next 5 scenes. I knew where I was going to end up. I had the central murder. I had that sorted in my head, so I knew where I was headed. But that's about it. And the thing that I loved when writing, so I've always read crime fiction for pleasure, just as a joy, and I never ever read it with a critical eye, thinking, oh, what are they doing here? How are they doing that? Are they foreshadowing something here? What's the, I never do. So, which is why I've always loved it. And writing it, I was thinking, there's so many little tricks. You think, oh, I could do that, and just that joy, which sounds so stupid, but it hadn't occurred to me. Just the absolute joy of it is hiding your clues, and and you said to me before, listen, you can't cheat anybody. You have to tell someone exactly, you have to know, you have to tell them in black and white what has happened and how, long before the solution comes, so they can look back and go, oh, he told us. And so hiding that is great, and then hiding 8 other things that might be that is great, and then just playing around with red herrings, and when the joy of having 4 main characters is you can sort of slot them in wherever you want, and the joy of having characters who make you laugh as well is you can play for laughs and hide things there, or you can play, there's so many places to hide things away, and that's the bit of the process I love most. I love, the writing of it is great and it comes from the heart and it's very painful and difficult, but there's the odd moment where you have the maths puzzle of it, where you just think, oh, that's lovely, and if you find an elegant solution for something that looks like you just made it up all along, that's a lovely moment.
You say you read crime fiction for pleasure, but now you are a practitioner. Do you think it changed the way you read it? Do you think the next time you pick up a crime novel, it'll be with a rather more professional eye, as it were?
Yeah, I think so, unfortunately. It looks like I'm drinking tea there, doesn't it? This is the British thing. That's neat vodka. That's neat vodka.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I think so. It's difficult, that, isn't it? Because in some ways I sort of feel, stuff I've read since. I mean, in a way it's good because I really can admire something in the way I hadn't admired it before, which is really, really good. But I don't ever want to lose that thing of reading entirely for pleasure. All the way through when I was writing this, I was listening to all the Patricia Highsmith Ripley novels. And in a way, you just think, I don't even want to think about them other than I love them. And I don't want to think about why I love them. I don't want to think about how she made me root for a psychopath. I just want to just revel in the fact that she did. But yeah, I think that I will probably be able to. I think that I'll probably be able to be okay. And everything I've read since, your latest Thorn novel, the prequel, I've read and is a wonderful book. It's just fabulous. And there wasn't a moment where I thought, hold on a minute, what's Billingham up to here? What's this little aside? That can't be right. Surely that's a clue.
But don't you find that knowing the writer of a book changes the way you read it? I mean, you're no longer just a crime writer. You're a member of a community, and you know that community pretty well. You know a lot of crime writers. You've been to some of the big crime writing festivals. And I always find that, so suddenly you're reading books by friends of yours, or reading books by somebody you propped up a bar with for a weekend. And it just slightly,
that's more to the point.
it slightly changes the way you read it, especially if it's a sex scene. That is a very strange experience.
I mean, I honestly, listen, I don't know what this says about me. I don't think I could ever write one. I don't want anybody I know to read that. You're quite right. If someone I know has written a sex scene, honestly, I'm gonna, like, if you do write a sex scene in a book ever, this is for all crime. In Crime Writer, I know. Okay, please don't put clue in the middle of it. Okay, because I'm skipping it. So if you're giving the clue and it's like in like mid-action, right? I'm going to miss that clue because I'm not going to read it. But I wouldn't want my kids to read it. I wouldn't want my mum to read it. I wouldn't want no. Come on. Listen, I'm interested in me having sex. I'm not interested in anyone else having sex. I'm certainly not interested in
anybody reading it. That's the problem. Is that you could describe the most incredibly complex, grand guignol bit of violence in a book, and nobody ever for a minute is going to think you've done it. One little strange sex scene. Honestly, people just look at you like, you.
Oh my God, that's a shame. And or they ask you to. I wonder if you could sign it to. Yeah, but yeah, that's it. Listen, we're much more comfortable writing an awful murder than we are writing even a very vanilla sex scene.
Yeah. Well, again, if the sex scene isn't actually doing something, advancing the plot in some way, it doesn't need to be there. So it's a very simple reason to just put a red line straight through it.
Yeah. Wow, this is really an adult conversation. I love it. This is so funny.
You just wants to talk dirty for a bit, Bob.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to interpolate myself in here to a minute because this has been a really interesting experience for me. I'm leaving my 70s in only 2 more months. And I've decided that 80 is going to be my final birthday. I'm going to be the Jack Benny. But, you know, I'm still perceived as faintly terrifying by quite a lot of people. So I do feel that I have lost a lot of, right, Bill?
Yes.
I haven't really lost a lot of power as
No.
I have grown older. So I find, you know, you're talking about people I consider to be juniors now in their 70s, please. But what I did want to mention, because you may not have seen it, is there's a whole wave of publicity coming for you in the United States. And I really love this one. Have you seen the one from the Christian Science Monitor, which is not a place I would normally go to? Now listen, this is really good. With wry British humor and a cast of intrepid retirees, Richard Osman's delightful mystery caper offers surprising depth. The wit and plot will bring readers back for more of this series, but what is truly memorable is the kindness and respect with which these friends treat one another and those they encounter. They have lived long lives, and they know that you can get a lot of mileage out of a cup of tea, a good lemon drizzle cake, and young people's assumptions that older folks are a bit doddering. Shit. I mean, I really didn't like. But let me go on. Here's another quote. An imaginative and witty whodunit, Osman's careful attention to the realities of life in a retirement village ensures that the Thursday Murder Club is a compassionate, thoughtful tribute to a segment of the population that's often dismissed or ignored. So I'm finding all this a little bit weird, but at the same time, I definitely agree, Richard, that there are very few really senior sleuths in crime fiction. You know, we can think about Father Brown, you know, I mean, Miss Marple and Poirot were basically kind of ageless. You never were sure whether they were 40 or 78, you know, it didn't really matter. But in general, sleuths in crime fiction are kind of in their middle years, occasionally young, but more often. You know, Ian, for example, decided to age Rebus, which caused him problems in the same way that Conley decided to age Bosch. And, you know, but most of the time we all make an implicit bargain that the sleuth is going to stay in some, you know, time thing virtually forever. So it's interesting that you started out and have written this way about a group of seniors. What's also interesting is the assumption in the Christian Science Monitor that this is the start of a series. And so I think we should think about that. But Bill has stepped up to see if we have any questions from the audience. So do you have any?
I was just going to make Richard aware of the bit you didn't read from that Christian Science Monitor review that said the only disappointment with this book is the shocking lack of sex.
You're right, and they did overlook that. We should have seen that there. I really thought it was intriguing to find a long quote from a publication that doesn't, I don't think, although to be honest, I don't know for sure, really normally review a lot of crime fiction.
That's the first review I've ever come across from that magazine. Well, let's deal with the series thing, Richard. It is the start of the series, right?
It is the start of the series. Yeah, I've now signed up for 4 books in the UK and the US. Which is great to sign up with Pamela Dorman Books in the US and Viking over here. So there's been 4 books. There's a movie in the offing as well that Spielberg is working on. It's very, very exciting. So I hope it's going to be around for a long time to come. I've just spent lockdown writing the second one. So I spent a lockdown in the company of these wonderful people. Everyone who survives the first book returns for the second book. So I spent lockdown in their company. It's been a very pleasurable way. If there is a pleasurable way to spend lockdown, then that was it.
Well, that's wonderful news.
Sorry, it's interesting what Barbara says about the way characters, sleuths, age. You know, and what most of us do, as Barbara said, is that there's that sort of unwritten bargain that they're not necessarily aging in real time, because even though there is at least a year between books, there isn't necessarily a year between cases, so they might only be 3 months older by the time the next book comes. So how's that going to work with Joyce and Elizabeth and Ron and Ibrahim?
Well, I know, because they're starting quite high up, and their age is quite a big deal, so I can't really fudge it. Well, what I've done with the second book, which I like anyway, is the second book literally starts the day after the first book ends. And in fact, right at the end of the first book, there's just one little line that then starts the first chapter of the next book. So just a little thing happens, and then we see that starting the next book. So essentially, I just want them to all sort of follow on from each other. So if the first book was over sort of 3 months, and the next book's over 3 months, you know, I can do 4 books, and they'll sort of take up a year. Let's say they've got another 10 years of sleuthing left in them. That's 40 books. No, listen, people, no one wants 40 books.
All right. Well, I'll be happy.
You're like Rick McBain.
I love it. I'll stand up
maybe.
with you and say that, you know, it is indeed possible for people entering their 80s to be competent sleuths. Let me just have Bill read any questions that we might have before we wind up over here, because he's on the alert.
Sure. Donna Douglas asks, I wonder if filming Pointless or Richard Osman's House of Fun affected the writing time.
Did you hear the question?
I did hear the question. Yeah, I mean, over here I've got 2 shows that run every single day, and people go, "Oh, you're so busy," because they see me on these 2 different shows every day. But as Mark knows, Mark's been on a couple of my shows. You know, we film a week's worth of shows in a single day, and therefore I can get a year's worth of work done fairly quickly in TV. And so actually, it sort of works very nicely. Maybe kind of 8 months of writing, 4 months of TV kind of works quite nicely as a schedule for me. That's certainly what I'm doing this year.
Then Teresa Watts asks, may I please ask why Richard decided to sell the rights for his book in the movie industry rather than television? I'm sure the BBC would have snapped it up for a 3-parter easily.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I thought long and hard about it because television is my industry, and the fact that people know me in the UK, I was worried when we were selling the book. I just thought, well, people buying this because I'm on TV and what have you. But as soon as we started getting sale, as soon as America bought it and Germany bought it, and then China and Russia and France, all of these countries who don't know who I am, I thought, oh, okay, that must be the book. And the same happens with TV. I know a lot of people in telly, and I know it's sort of quite a TV-friendly idea. So I was slightly worried, oh, are they just buying it because of who I am and this, that, or the other? But when Spielberg comes in, he really, really has never seen me on telly, has no idea who I am. When he reads it and likes it and understands that he could make a movie and loves the characters and the story, I just think, great. He's buying the story, he's not buying me. So for me, that was just a way of saying, you know what, that's... I'll let the story be the story, and I can take myself out of the equation, really.
I think Knives Out is an interesting example of of a crime story that worked really well for a movie and really couldn't be a series because you couldn't stretch it out over several episodes.
That's a brilliant movie, and it's really, really helpful for this as well. Because I think it showed that people want those big Agatha Christie style movies, but with a twist now, and hopefully Thursday Murder Club will be one of those.
Another? Nope. All right. Those are the basic Bill synthesized things. So, Mark, I'll go back to you.
Yes, I want to ask Richard this. Most British crime writers I know have had a lot of very interesting experience over the years when it comes to their books being published in the US, in terms of US publishers and notes from editors and so on. And obviously, we've talked about the Britishness of it on a deep level. But there are also, I wondered if you'd had any notes back from your US editor on a much more sort of quotidian level of, did you get notes going, what's a Jaffa cake, or? Yeah,
there's a lot of references to some very British brands all the way through this, the shops, and also on the first page I mentioned a shop called John Lewis, and John Lewis in America is a very different thing, and they were like, what? And Robert Dias, which is a big shop over there. I mean, there's loads and loads of it. The only things that in the end I actually had to take out were at one point a character goes for a mooch around the shops, and they didn't know what that meant. And a mooch is just sort of when you have a little saunter around the shops, look in the windows, you're not really looking to buy anything, you're just having a wander around. And there was another point when Ron, the Labour activist, there's a point in the story where he goes for a slash in the woods. And they were like...
No, it was that kind of book.
This bit was... So Ron is... he's gone for a slash in the... They thought it was a big plot point where he murdered someone. He said, what is it, a slash in the woods? And I had to say that going for a slash over here is going to the loo, going to the toilet, if you like. So he was relieving himself in the woods. But I could absolutely understand they thought they missed a plot point when one of the main characters goes for a slash in the woods and then sort of walks out a few minutes later. So that I had to change. I don't know what it's changed to, but they changed it to something or other. So
No,
one note that goes to the front.
I can always understand those kind of notes. It's the one where, like obviously in America they don't say car park. That's they don't. But the idea that your character goes to maybe collect the car that he's left in a car park, and they ask him to change that, and you go, surely the context makes it kind of obvious what it is.
But also, that's one of the things we love about reading American crime fiction is the things that we don't have. Like if you go to a store, if you go to a bookstore, honestly, I know you've gone to a bookshop. I know. I absolutely get it. And if you're in the parking lot outside the bookstore, I know you're in the car park outside the bookshop. I get it. But also, I love the language of it. You know, it's because it's different to what I'm used to. And I think that American readers are exactly the same. They love it. There's a sort of quaintness to some of the British terms, in the same way that we think American terms are incredibly cool and incredibly hard-boiled. That's why we think all American writers are incredibly sort of dark and hard-boiled, because their language is so exciting to us.
And even those Americanisms that British people like to complain about sometimes. And you probably know this, it's almost certainly been a question on Pointless. But I was amazed to discover that things like calling autumn the fall, we had that first. It came from us.
It's an English term. We get furious when Americans call our football soccer. We go, you can't call it soccer, it's football. But soccer, of course, is what we call it. That's what we called it, because we had rugby football and association football, and they were rugby and soccer. And we get furious when Americans say aluminum instead of aluminium. And aluminum was what it was supposed to originally be called. We got so many calls the other day. This tells you more about Britain than you'll ever need to know. We had a question about chemical elements, and one of the answers was sulfur. And we spelled it S-U-L-F-U-R. Now over here, for years, it's been P-H-U-R, but now it's not anymore. Internationally, it's not. Okay, now it's F-U-R. That's how you officially spell it everywhere in the world. And the amount of letters saying, this dreadful Americanism creeping into our BBC programmes, what an absolute disgrace. And you want to go, okay, that's how we spell it now. I'm ever so sorry. It's not the Americans' fault. Lots of things over the years have been the Americans' fault. Lots have been our fault. This one is nobody's fault.
Yeah, potato. So what's the actual? Is the book out in the US right now, Richard, or is it?
Yeah. The book was out on the 22nd, so it's available in all good bookstores, particularly Poison Pen, who have signed copies. This is gutting for us, and I know it's gutting for the Americans as well, that nobody in either of our countries is trusted to get on a plane at the moment, because I love America. I did American politics at university. That's my degree, and I'd love to be over there and just going around bookstores, and doing the big tour. And the second I can, hopefully for the second book of the paperback, because you must have done big old tours of America. And it must be fun to talk to American readers, right?
It's a lot of fun to talk to the readers. The actual tours themselves are incredibly hard work because it's 10 cities in 12 days, let's say, and of course they're not planning your itinerary for your pleasure and comfort. So you're literally going from Washington to LA, then back to New York, then to Arizona and up to Seattle or wherever it is. It's fairly brutal, but everybody goes to Poison Pen, that's for sure.
What I've heard. I was thinking when Barbara was talking, anyone who's read Thursday Murder Club, wouldn't Barbara be a good Elizabeth in the movie?
Yes.
I'm only age qualified. I really love this book, and I will say, here's an interesting thought for the two of you. I was able, because we have a partnership with a bookshop in London, so we import an enormous amount of crime fiction into the United States. So back to back, I read Alex Pavesi's The Eight Detectives. Over here it's called The Eighth Detective. And I read The Thursday Murder Club. And normally I would have ordered the amount that our First Mystery Club people, would buy, because it's really expensive if you go wrong with a British import, because, they cost a lot, you can't return them, and if you have made a mistake, there you are. And after I read both of them, I wrote back and I said, seriously, we need to double our order. And they went, really? Are you sure? And I said, trust me. I said, we really want to do that. So we did. And the question that I get the most often in 31 years is this: how did you know? That's what I'm always asked. How did you know? How did you know the Thursday Murder Club would be this gigantic success? How did you know when the Crawdads sing, a book I had to fight in order to get I actually had to work hard to get the author here. How did you know?
Wow.
You know, it's difficult to explain. It's a whole combination of, you know, who's the author, what's their personality, how much is the publisher behind this, what is the writing? That actually comes first with me. I've done that backwards. It's really all about voice. I read for voice 100% of
Yes.
the time, you know, because plots are plots. And, you know, as an editor, I always acquired for voice because I could fix plot, but if you're boring, I can't help you. And that was my line. And but it's true. It's really true. So your voice, I think, is a magical voice. I thought Alex had a very different voice, but was also one that was going to be successful. I remember Mark's first book, you know, and how wonderful it was to read Tom Thorne. For 31 years, we've basically walked along with virtually every author now successfully, well, still published.
Wow.
Successful means still in print, right, Mark? Or still?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right.
And also, I do think, sorry to interrupt, it's about the characters, you wanting to spend time with those characters.
Yeah, but that's from
Especially-
the voice. You know, if the,
Yes,
if the
of course.
character is boring, you don't care. You know, so voice is just a portal to character. I probably didn't say it well, but that's the way I look at it. If the voice is engaging, it's a portal to the character, and the character is engaging. And what they do is less interesting to me than who they are and what they are. And that's why, you know, we have a really great record, I think. Patrick is very good at this. You've met Patrick on our staff. And another staff member, Karen, reads a lot. But I think that's why when people say, how do you know? You know, we just kind of smile because we did know. You know, we do.
When you pick up the latest installment in a series that you're a fan of, it's like spending time with old friends.
Absolutely.
You know, it's very lovely. And the thing that really struck me about Thursday Murder Club is that those characters felt like old friends right from the get-go, right from the beginning. You started reading that book. They felt like people you knew and that you wanted to. It was a joy to spend time with. You know.
Absolutely.
Can you give us any clues about where they're going, Richard, or is that an absolute no? Any clue?
Yeah, I can't really. I was going to ask you one question, Mark, because as somebody, you know, you were successful right off the bat. So even when you're doing your second book, you knew that people loved the first one. And what's the extra pressure there of thinking, oh, they love the first one, but this one, oh, I don't think I can do it again. Is it hard? Was that hard for you?
Yes, because I still hadn't realised that was what it was supposed to be like. It took me about 3 or 4 books of moaning that it was getting harder and harder before somebody like Michael Connelly sat me down and said, it's supposed to be like that, you idiot. You know, because you're trying to write a better book. It's good pressure.
Yeah.
You know, if there isn't that pressure there's something wrong, because where's that ambition gone, you know? It's
annoying. It's like going to the gym. And the thing about going to the gym is it never gets easier, because as soon as you get good at it, you put extra weight on the bar, and so suddenly it's just hard again. And you keep making it harder and harder and harder for yourself. I guess that's certainly how I found with the second one. I loved it, and I loved spending time with them during lockdown. But you are thinking, blimey, you've got to do this again, you know, because is it possible?
But at least you were writing it before the Thursday Night Club come out, so it wasn't like you were writing it with this massive commercial pressure of, oh my God, this first book is sold in record-breaking numbers. You know, you're still writing the book you wanted to write.
I've been thinking the last few weeks as everything's happened over here. Thank God I've got the first draft of the next one done, and I'm happy with it, and I like the story, and the editor is happy with it, and there's lots of work to do on it, and we know all of that. But yeah, thank goodness I'm not thinking, how do I follow that up, because I already have. Yeah, that's a stroke of luck.
Yeah, but it's not supposed to get easier. It's not supposed to.
Good.
It's still the best job in the world, though, right? It's still the best job in the world.
It's amazing. Listen, I've done Teddy for years and years and years, and I love it, and I love being in a team. This is the proudest I've ever been of any creative endeavour of mine ever. This book is the thing I'm proudest of that I've ever done creatively. And, you know, this sounds ridiculous, but I'm so proud of the characters, and I'm so chuffed for the success of the book. To me, this sounds such an awful author thing to say, but it's not like I'm feeling personally thrilled. I'm just thrilled that people are reading Joyce's story and Elizabeth's story and Ron and Ibra. I'm just pleased for them that people are reading their story and people want to hear more from them. I'm very chuffed for them. That's ridiculous, isn't it?
No, it's absolutely not ridiculous.
Not at all.
How did it feel not working collaboratively, though, for the first time, where literally everything is down to you?
Honestly, I loved it. And I thought, hold on a minute, what what if everyone's been holding me back all these years? What if, what if that's what's happening? No, I really loved it. But do you know what? I've loved the bit from the moment that it was sold. I've loved being in a team with the publishers, and I love being in a team with booksellers like Barbara. And with readers. That's what I love, because now we're a big team, you know, and all crime writers look after each other, and that's a team. And publicity and sales and all that, that's a team. So to me now, I'm back in a team, and that's lovely. And there's a whole gang around the Thursday Murder Club, all of whom are taking joy from the sales figures and all of that kind of stuff. So that I've absolutely loved. And I genuinely think, and I'll come out, I said to the publishers, I will go sell this door to door if you want, because I'm really proud of it. But also, you know, it's lovely to sell a load, but you know, the rising tide, you know, raises all boats, right? That's the point. And we're a community of writers, of readers, and of booksellers. And what's good for one is good for everybody. You know, that's the thing that I really love about it. We're a selling business, we're a reading business, and writers are just like one part of that machine. And that my ego is much happier with. The introvert in me is much happier with that. But it's honestly, I loved writing, and I love being part of the team as well. So it's kind of ideal for me.
And it's, I think it's fair to say that it's a slightly nicer machine, maybe, than television, certainly than comedy, which is the world I came from. You know, it's a lot less kind of cutthroat. It's a lot politer, you know, British in the sense we
yeah. I mean, it's certainly I feel like taking some of the ways that some of my salesman's ways from television, which is very cutthroat, and I've always tried to work with really good people, and I've always tried to act honourably. But I certainly learned a lot of tricks in that world that I'm immediately able to put into the book world. And you do things sometimes with authors, they're happy to finish the book, put it out there, and just let people find it if they want to. And you know, and to me, that's not how I would ever operate. If I've got something I'm proud of, then we get to work. Then you know, we get to work, and we push it out there, and we get people to love it and to recommend it to other people. And you know, that comes from the competitive bit of television. And you know, that I think is that's been a useful skill to have. But yeah, I mean, God, the community of crime writers and the support that I feel I've been given by people has been extraordinary, and the advice that people give me, you know, even when when you get those sales figures in, people are still sending you nice texts and things. You think it's crazy, you know? It's but it's lovely.
Well, the book is still riding high here in the UK.
Where'd he go?
Richard's disappeared.
Where'd
I don't know
he
whether
go?
he can still hear us.
There he is.
No, he's back. He's
There he
back.
is.
I was just saying that the book is still going gangbusters over here, riding high in the UK bestseller list. It deserves absolutely to do the same in the US, and I know that people like Barbara will play their part in making that happen. So people that are watching this, if they can get to Poison Pen, or they can go online to Poison Pen, they need to do that and get themselves a nice signed copy. Or if then 1,000 miles from Arizona, get to your nearest bookstore and buy it, because you will not be disappointed.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
That's a wonderful way to end this. Don't go away, but I'm going to say goodbye to our Facebook audience. So thank you, all of you who joined us this afternoon, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.